Justin Trudeau called the election yesterday. He's nowhere near the end of his term. It hasn't even been 2 years. There is no crisis of confidence in Parliament. I mean that in the legal sense, as in losing a confidence vote. In fact, all the opposition parties are only too happy to prop up Trudeau's minority. None of them wants an election, and they keep saying so. I believe in a system where an unelected Governor General would deny a Prime Minister an election in a case like this, but I think the new Governor General, handpicked by Trudeau just weeks ago, ought to have made Trudeau wait a bit for her answer. And, she could comment in a very reserved and understated way, like the Queen might do, that she yields to the decision of the Prime Minister, but on behalf of the constitutional monarchy, on behalf of the state itself, she expresses reservations about the timing of an election. I say that not because I'm sympathetic to the whining of the unprepared opposition, but because there is actually a crisis going on right now that I think behooves the Prime Minister to, work on, rather than to ignore for the next 5 weeks. And I'm talking about the disaster of our age, the handing over of Afghanistan to the Taliban terrorists in a shocking turn of events. Canada no longer has any troops officially in Afghanistan. Canadians serve there as private contractors, though. There's a lot of Canadian NGOs and diplomats there, of course. Stephen Harper brought back the last of Canada's troops in 2014. But the fact is, Afghanistan was a sort of colony of NATO for 20 full years. 20 years. I checked, and the median age of Afghans is 18 and a half years old. So most Afghans were born and raised in a country, spent their whole life in a country controlled by NATO. It's a very long time. Truly an empire, and you can imagine how many people shaped their lives in accordance with the fact that they were living in an American and NATO empire, that the US and other allies would be there to maintain some sort of order, not a democracy, but not even really a rule of law kind of place, but just a mitigation of the terror, some pretense of civilization, at least in the major centers. That's being replaced in a matter of weeks, actually just days. The medieval times are back. They're painting over women's faces in billboards, you see. Here's CNN's reporter getting into the spirit of things, not just with her head covering, but with her explanations. I mean, sure, they hate America, but in a nice way.
They're just chanting death to America, but they seem friendly at the same time. It's utterly bizarre.
Imagine if you were born and raised in Afghanistan, you cast your lot in with the West. And now the East has devoured the West. Countless weapons, more sophisticated than ever, even helicopters and jets, American materiel left behind from their own troops, but also everything that the U.S. gifted to Afghan's 300,000 person army that just surrendered in days. And how much of that is being shipped to Iran right now in this video to be inspected, sold to Russia and China? I read a report of an F-15 flight simulator that was captured. China's got to be excited about that. America was actually begging and bribing the Taliban to spare its embassy in Kabul. That embassy out there, it actually tweeted the Pride Day flag tweet thing. And that's really nice of them. But I don't think that spirit of LGBTQ2+ is going to survive much longer under the Taliban. The top general in the United States, Mark Milley is his name, he's been so busy lately declaring war against his own troops. He's made public statements demanding that critical race theory be taught and pro-trans ideas be taught, and domestic white rage is the real threat to America. He said all of that. He's been so busy with that. I think you forgot about the whole war and guns and terrorist part of his job. Oh, well, this is a real U.S. Army recruiting ad. I think they might be focused a bit too much on politics and not enough on killing the bad guys. This is real.
It begins in California with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. Standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
So back to reality. I think. Joe Biden went into hiding. So did the whole Democrat front bench. They put out this press release, a tweet pretty much, just begging the Taliban to spare the U.S. Embassy. Pretty please. It reminded me of this tweet by Michelle Obama, "Bring back our girls," which was a tweet written to the Boko Haram Muslim terrorist group in Nigeria that was kidnapping and killing and raping and forcibly converting young Christian girls. Michelle Obama is the wife of the most powerful man in the world. If the best you can do about it is tweet, that's actually unhelpful because it signals to the whole world that that's all your husband's going to do about it. And your tweet is the worst that's coming. The thing about Donald Trump was that you knew the one thing he was personally incapable of doing was appearing weak. He was mocked for that. You know how he always talked about being the best, the biggest, huge, having the most people at his inauguration, for example. Now, a lot of people debated that. Did he really or not? I don't care if it was true or if it wasn't. What that whole ridiculous debate taught me, at least, is that being strong, or at least appearing to being strong, and getting respect for strength was so important for Trump as a businessman and a politician. And so it was. For example, when he was having dinner with China's president at Mar-a-Lago, that's precisely the minute he ordered a missile strike on Syria, just to show how tough he was. No one messed with Trump because of that. There was no terrorist attack on U.S. soil. In fact, he mopped up ISIS in a few months. He killed its boss, Soleimani, and that was actually in Iran, and killed al-Baghdadi. He just killed all the bad guys. Countries fell into line. Iran didn't try anything big. Even when Trump killed their top guy, Soleimani, certainly didn't try anything like when it captured U.S. and U.K. sailors under Obama's watch. But Biden and his team, who actually are strong because they're Americans and they have the same strong army at their disposal that Trump had, they think weakly. They actually hate America's strength, so they telegraph to the world that they don't want to use America's strength. They want the world to know that they can be beaten. It's almost like they wanted what happened. Trump was negotiating an exit from Afghanistan too, by the way. But anytime the Taliban did something violent, he'd call off the negotiations and bomb them back to the Stone Age. So they learned who they were dealing with. That's that strength and appearing strong thing. What does this scene from Kabul's airport show, other than a redux of that iconic Vietnam evacuation photo? It shows weakness, doesn't it? It's instructive to me how little Trudeau cares about all of this. I acknowledge that we don't have troops on the ground there now, but neither does America in a major way. I acknowledge that Afghanistan is largely a failed experiment in nation building in a country that is not modern and is in fact culturally anti-modern. But that's where Canada was the noisiest, or at least Trudeau was. All that talk about soft power and girl power and LGBTQ+, all Trudeau's specialties. But that's what's going the quickest in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. That was gone the very first day, wasn't it? Trudeau doesn't really care. He's happy, like Joe Biden is, to see America humiliated. Trudeau's favorite country is China, which will take over everything in Afghanistan now. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.